Hi, and
Hello.
welcome to the
Hello.
Miles with Moms podcast. This is a podcast for moms who run by moms who run, and our goal with this podcast is for mother runners everywhere to never have to run alone or feel alone in their mom life struggles or journey to accomplishing big goals. Because guess what? Taking time to take care of yourself to chase big goals as a mom is not only okay, it's awesome for you and the lessons you're teaching your kids. We do tend to swear sometimes, so be careful if you have kids around. And if you are a family member of us, we're sorry. I'm so sorry.
Oops.
But yeah, we do know what swear words are, and sometimes we use them. And I do feel like it's important to note that our motto, one of our like underlying mottos, is that no topic is off limits. So we will talk about anything. We will be real with anything. Yes, we may use the F word as a comma. If there's anything in particular you want us to talk about, feel free to message us on Instagram at Miles Moms Podcast. So today we're going to talk about a really important topic, running postpartum. And we'll share our experience, but Tricia is our resident expert. She actually went to college for physical therapy and has a degree, and she's specialized. Well, Tricia, you can put it in, you can share your credentials maybe, but
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
postnatal rehab. So yeah, I'm Whitney. I'm one of your hosts. All right, Olivia, you want to go next?
I'm Olivia.
Shanna.
I see you right there.
Yes.
Jana, I'm just yelling at my kids to go downstairs with
Hi,
their dad.
Mommy has.
I'm Tricia.
So Tricia,
Yeah.
do you want to quickly share your credentials?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Tricia. I'm a doctor of physical therapy. I'm also specialized in prenatal and postpartum exercise, and I'm also certified to treat the pelvic floor. So this whole topic of postpartum is like right in my wheelhouse. I love this stuff.
Totally. Yeah,
Yes, and I've had 3 of my own, so I've been through the postpartum process myself, fully appreciate it.
Yeah, it always helps. I love it when, a medical expert has lived it and they understand. Otherwise it's kind of hard to, okay, so we'll get
Right.
into that. But first, something that we're not interviewing a man talking about the pelvic floor and, having babies and running, right? I mean,
I'm sure, but they always have their opinions, don't they?
yeah.
They're the experts, right?
Okay, so before we get into that, we have started doing a Mother Runner shout out every week. And we're also very excited because we're going to be dropping some episodes where we are interviewing some of these amazing mother runners. So stay tuned for that. That's coming up. But I wanted to shine a light on 5 a.m. Mommy Runner. That's her Instagram handle. Francesca, she is incredible. I mean, if you follow her on Instagram, you will see her getting ready to run with like beautifully braided hair, at 5 a.m.
Yeah,
She has an infant. Yeah, she's running on the treadmill. She's got her infant in the car seat right next to her. And so we're all amazed by her, and we wanted to know more about her journey. And so I'm going to read what she wrote me. But just Francesca, you are incredible and you're doing an incredible job. So she says, I began running at 17 to deal with childhood trauma that carried into my teen years. This led me to trying to run D1 track, but unfortunately that was short-lived due to needing compartment syndrome surgery on both of my legs. I returned to running on my own and eventually became a long-distance runner. Fast forward to today, I'm a 37-year-old full-time working mom to 3 littles, 5, 2, and 4 months old, and have completed numerous half and full marathons. I'm about to toe the line of my 8th marathon in Richmond, Virginia on November 16th. And she's going to do her first 8-hour ultra on December 15th.
wow.
Incredible.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. And remember, she had a baby 4 months ago. Running helps me immensely with my mental health, and I love showing my kids we can challenge our bodies in a healthy way and together as a family. And she's like, I hope that doesn't come across as humble bragging. I'm like, no,
Oh my
you're all like,
goodness.
you
Brag
need to
away.
be bragging because
Yeah.
you're
Right.
incredible.
Yes, so seriously.
Yeah, she's
She's
amazing.
amazing.
And Tricia and Francesca are like the only ones corresponding at 4 a.m. Eastern time.
No.
That's so
I
funny.
was like, oh my gosh, you are so my people. And I'm really hoping so because I live in Richmond. So my brother's running the next weekend. So I'm going out to pace him a little bit. So I'm going to keep my eye out for her. And I am going to scream very loudly if I see her. Yeah.
That's so
She's
awesome.
so impressive. I didn't realize that her other two were that young. I mean, I guess I've seen pictures and videos of them, but wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're little.
She's impressive.
Yeah,
It
she is.
so impressive. I always just say, I'm like, the sleep deprivation. I mean, just
Mhm.
even with kids, let alone a 4-month-old, and she's working full time and running. I mean,
Yeah.
people are just incredible.
Amazing.
People are
Yeah.
amazing. Although I will say too, like, if you're listening to this and you're not doing that and you're like, how in the world, just remember, this is
Everybody's
something I have to
different.
remind myself. It's like everybody's circumstances are different,
Mhm.
like
Everybody's pregnancies are
maybe her baby sleeps really well, or it just,
Yeah.
maybe
And
maybe it's for more her mental health. Like
yes.
right.
that's
Right.
probably
Yeah.
that's her outlet in life, especially probably with her husband's busy schedule. He
Mhm.
gone probably quite a bit. So she's like, hey, I'd rather be sleep deprived but mentally sane than
Right.
have some sleep and then be mentally insane. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so
That was-
true.
Yeah.
That's a good point. And also, if you are listening to this, and this is my beautiful transition, if you're listening to this and you are you're 4 months postpartum and you're like, how in the world I can't, like, walking still doesn't feel right. Again, like, every pregnancy is different. And I think maybe we start there. I don't know if you guys want to jump in. And I mean, I guess let's start with Shanna because you've had 5 pregnancies. She's like, whoa, Whitney.
Right. Yeah, let's go.
Let's go. She's had 5 pregnancies,
Yeah.
and because she's
do
got
as
a set of
do as I
twins.
say, not as I do.
And like, I bet you can speak to the fact that every pregnancy experience that you've had has been probably pretty different, right?
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind, like I never really trained for like any races or anything. Like running at the time was just kind of like really, really hobby status. But yeah, in my first 3, I was kind of off and on with them. I was probably more like Francesca, like where I would wake up and go to the gym at like 5 a.m. I'd be there at 5 a.m. and then work out because my husband had to like leave really early. He was in like the plumbing field area at that time. So he was doing like new construction. So he had to be gone like really early. And then with my twins, I didn't really run very much after that, like postpartum and stuff. I was kind of like off and on with them as well. And then I didn't run till 6 months. And I didn't run at all during her whole pregnancy. So that one was probably the most different of them all. And there was no like valid reason. I didn't have like any high risk pregnancy or anything. I just didn't care to run at that point in my life. And yeah, so the comeback was like 6 months after. And honestly, I think that was probably my smartest comeback, to be honest with you, because I spent like 3 months just strength training. Like I would do it 4 or 5 times a week. And I feel like when I came back, I wasn't injury prone. I didn't have any like dysrectio, whatever, the separation of the ab.
Say it wrong
I
too. What was it called?
was like,
DR.
Why am I even trying to say this word? But yeah, I didn't have that. Like when like after my twins, I had that for a while. Like it took forever for my abs to come back together, and I could feel it. Like anytime I would do like an inconsistent run, like it was just like everything felt heavy all the time. But with her, because I allowed it to heal a bit longer, I feel like that was the most beneficial return for me. But it's hard, okay? Like I don't
Yeah.
know, if I were to have another, I don't know if I could wait 6 months to come back running. So
I do wish I didn't know anything. My first daughter, and my only daughter, my first pregnancy was more than a decade ago. And like, I didn't know anything, honestly, about pelvic floor. Nobody said anything to me about it. I was just worried about my uterus falling out. Like,
Yeah.
that was the only thing I was like, and my doctor actually lives up the street and she saw me running. I am
yes.
embarrassed to say it was probably like 2 weeks after And
goodness.
I was just like, is my uterus, I'm running past her house. I'm like, is my uterus going to fall out? And then I saw on Instagram, I was scrolling, I was looking for something a few weeks ago and I stopped on a picture of my watch and it was like, I ran, I don't know, like a 10K as fast as I could. And it was way too fast. And it was 8 weeks after having my second.
Yeah,
It was
that's impressive though.
No, I mean, I'm not saying it
Right.
was a PR, but it was like I was out there trying to run as fast as I could 8 weeks because nobody ever told me. And I will tell you that things didn't. I'm lucky that I am okay. I do think, again, I said in a previous episode, I think a lot of my injuries can probably be rerouted back to core and pelvic floor not being properly rehabbed. But things didn't, I mean, I was doing it and mentally I needed it so much because it was like, it's my anchor. It was like the only time that I felt normal, even though my body didn't necessarily feel normal. Like I felt like my pelvis was kind of splitting apart when I was running. Like it just felt, things just didn't feel right, but it
Would you call that fire crotch? That's like a term. Like, am I crazy?
Is it lightning crotch?
Lightning crotch.
Fire
Yeah.
crotch.
Yeah.
Get it?
Fire crotch. None of it is good.
You're referring to like that feeling.
Well,
that
no,
like,
it didn't feel like it was ripping apart. Like it wasn't like an acute pain. It was more just like it was kind of achy, you know? But I mean, kudos for you for weaving the fire crotch. And
Whitney, was your crotch on fire?
no, okay, so me and my friend.
then I'm answering it honestly. I'm like, what I would call. You're gonna
Bunch of
shame
fire.
that that's
It was
what you experienced. I mean, okay.
No, yeah. Like
Yeah.
it just feels like it's really intense, like pain. Like it just is like really heavy. Feels like
Yeah.
it's on fire. Like, but
Yeah. The heaviness,
Anyway.
definitely. But mine didn't feel on fire, but it definitely
Okay,
felt
yeah.
like heavy and achy for a while. What about Shanna? Olivia and Tricia, did you guys, well, Tricia, she probably did everything right. Right.
Yeah, you probably did everything right.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, right.
Uh,
She ran ultra 2 weeks pregnant.
No. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like that if I had known what I know now, would I
Yeah.
have done it's so much easier to tell other people what to do, let's be real.
Mhm.
Oh
But
my God. That's why I need a running coach because I cannot follow my own advice at all.
same. God, me neither.
Yeah.
No. I mean, yeah, and this is what I do for a living, but it's so much, oh hello. What are you doing?
So are we gonna have
Hi.
a little
We'll say hi and then we'll go back up, okay? We have Elsa. Say hello.
Hi, Elsa?
Hi.
Oh,
Hey, guys, look
cute.
up, okay? So pretty.
So bye. With my first, he'll be 9 in December. I had no clue. I mean, this is having gone through PT school. We kind of glazed over women's health, pelvic health, and at that time, I was like,
Mhm.
I was like, right. I was like, no way would I ever want to do this, right? Like, and that was before kids. But so I remember going to my 6-week checkup with my son and with the stroller packed in the trunk because I was like, 6 weeks, here we go.
Yeah.
And as soon as I got home, I didn't even go inside. I threw him in the stroller and started
Yeah.
running. And
Oh, I love it.
1 mile in was peeing behind a bush. Not,
Oh,
didn't
my
even
goodness.
dawn on me. And then with my second, and keep in mind, like with all 3 of my pregnancies, I ran up to the day of my water broke, was doing some crazy stuff that I look back now and I'm like, how did I do that? So I was very active during my 3 pregnancies. And so in my mind, the
We've seen your
postpartum initial phase-
Instagram.
Yeah.
We know.
My goodness.
You come upstairs.
You can't fool us.
She's doing like
Right.
one arm,
Yeah.
like pull ups, pregnant.
She was doing like jump squats. That much pregnant.
And
I was like, your water's gonna break on that video.
Insane. Yeah.
I don't, and it felt so good during that time. But I look at it now and I'm like, how was I leaving the ground? Like, I have no idea. It's so crazy. But so with my second, it was very much like I had a very hard time postpartum depression with my first. And so with the second, I was like, I have to start working out and running. Like mentally, I needed it. So I remember I was probably 2 or 3 weeks postpartum when I started running with my second. And with my third, I was definitely more mindful because so she was born in 2020. At this point, I had already gone through a prenatal postpartum exercise certification, so I was very much more in the know. But even still, I did
The
some
rules
things
don't
that were
apply to
smarter.
me, right?
I know, like
Yeah.
it was, I was better. Like I definitely prioritized strength more than running, but I started running early too. And then I was running with the stroller very early on. Like same thing. I remember coming back from a run, and when you know more, it's almost worse because I was
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, I have prolapse. Like, this, you just start thinking like, I have
Spiral.
the heaviness. Like, God, why are we all here? Here they are.
Obviously.
Love the
Right.
snack.
I
Right.
love
The
it.
cause
It's so bad.
yeah, like
Now I'm just
fire.
picturing Olivia opening fruit snacks with her
Okay.
teeth and
No,
just
throwing
nonstop.
them
Just
while
go
on the
get
treadmill.
it.
All
Yeah,
right.
that's the story of my
Yeah.
life, right? Yeah. Yeah.
How did you do? Were your two postpartum experiences similar, and did
They
you wait
were
to run?
oh, I didn't really wait to run. Same as you, nobody had ever said the words like pelvic floor to me in the sense of running. So, I got my yoga teacher training certification like back in 2015, and pelvic floor was becoming a really big thing just for yoga, not prenatal, nothing. It was just this thing that you were supposed to strengthen. Like that was kind of it. And I just remember them talking about it a lot. And then there was a lot more information coming out about your pelvic floor and kind of how it works. And, even just in your everyday life that, as you get older, it's not normal to pee yourself, that kind of thing, because, it's like social media became the thing and it was like, you're a mom when you sneeze and pee yourself, and so I think that was starting to become more and more talked about. So even in the yoga realm before I was running, that was talked about. But then nobody ever said the words pelvic floor, postpartum, baby, running. Like none of that was ever talked about. And so, when I started running again after I had my son, for me the confusion was entirely on breastfeeding and how was I like I had no energy to run, and it was just so weird. It was like I just couldn't get my speed up. And I'm talking like even like a 4.5 on the treadmill. Like I was like, oh, this is so hard. It was just so hard. And so that was where that was the hardest part for me. But I definitely was out there. I mean, I know I talked about this before, but I seriously had Depends on my first like 3 weeks of running, and I was back on my stationary bike. Like I have a Peloton, and I was out there doing classes and, all this stuff. And so I just wanted to be active because for me, that was my sanity, and getting into that routine was just so important for me. Like I love routine, but I will say I'm surprised that I got into this running group in my neighborhood, and I'm just so surprised that there was nobody that ever mentioned it to me, like at any point, and never said, anything about like postpartum checkup, physical therapy, like, because all these women had, 3 to 6 kids, and not a single one of them was ever like, oh, are you having a hard time with this? Or did you go and see this? Because with my daughter, I actually never even went to my 6-week checkup. I felt fine. And I was like, it was, because after my son's 6-week checkup, I remember just being so frustrated that nobody asked me to see pictures of him. And I was like, well, I'm not even going to go. They're not going to ask me about my baby. But because it's like you're a new mom and you want to show off your baby. And are we doing okay? We're filling out questionnaires about mental health in the hospital, and then nobody's asking you about it 6 weeks later.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm not even going to go because if I can't show off pictures of her because she's so cute, I'm not going to go.
It kind of is a waste of time. I
Yeah.
mean, because they basically
Yeah.
are like, "Are you done bleeding? Okay, you're good to resume."
Yes.
So I will say it has come a really long way as far as knowledge of the importance of doing pelvic floor PT. Like almost every athlete that comes to me now that's pregnant or postpartum, they are seeing a pelvic floor physical therapist, which is amazing.
That is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that has dramatically changed in even just the past 5 years or so. So I think I'd love to dive into the questions. If you're good for that, Tricia.
Yeah, I'm good. And it is like as much information as there is out there, there still isn't enough, or there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of confusion, and people are inundated. And even just looking at the questions that have come through, there's so many common themes. But it is a shame with the 6-week checkup. And part of it is the OBGYNs, their top priority is that mom and baby are healthy through pregnancy. And when the baby is delivered, I wish that it was common practice for them to be like, okay, go to pelvic health PT. Like that should just be the norm. However, it's not. So a lot of women say exactly what you say, Olivia. Like it could have been a phone call. You're not even looking at my vagina, which has just been decimated.
This is,
like,
like,
you know,
like,
Fire cry.
What a word.
Fire cry.
like, yeah, we're doing good over here.
You guys are taking it up a notch. I don't think we've sworn yet, but we have used the term vagina has been decimated and fire crotch. So
The only person that's excited at the 6-week checkup is your husband, okay? Like they're the only one.
yeah.
We're the only ones that you're clear.
Yeah, and that's the question. Like, what kind of birth control do you want? It's like, excuse me, I have fluids coming out of every orifice of my body, and you want me to put what? Like, back off.
so true.
Yeah. All right, I'll calm down. I'll get professional here.
Well, okay. Let's talk. Well, you said there's a lot of like misconceptions out there. Can we start there? Maybe just like, what are the things that you're hearing and seeing where it's just blatantly wrong?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, so I see a lot of fear mongering, really, surrounding a bunch of topics. The number one being diastasis recti. So diastasis recti, diastasis, tomato.
There we go.
But it's scary, and it's like it's so good in some ways. Like, okay, it's being talked about, and same with incontinence and leaking. Like even the quote unquote funny memes about moms we leak. Like it's just part of our daily life, which is it's sad, and I hate to see it. But on the other end, it's like at least it's being talked about so people don't feel alone, right? But I see so much fear mongering. It's like people are scared. And even with all of those questions that were submitted about diastasis, like, how do I run if I have diastasis? Is it safe for me to do this with diastasis? Because people are scared. And you see pictures of women's abs that are just very significant separations. And that's not always the case. I mean, I saw a woman the other day who was told she had a diastasis from another PT who never touched her, never did an exam on her abdomen. And I was like, okay, well, what did she tell you? Like, how many, did she give you a finger width or depth? And she's like, no, she didn't even touch my stomach. I was like, really?
Wow.
Okay. And so in the process, she's having issues with leaking, and she's thinking it's coming from the diastasis. So I hear that a lot. I have back pain. It's because of my diastasis. I'm leaking. It's because of my diastasis. Everything is getting blamed on diastasis, and it's not really the truth. Most of the time, women don't even have that severe of an abdominal separation. And I think one thing that people don't understand, and I try to push this, is that it is completely normal, and 100% of women will have a diastasis by the end of their pregnancy. It has to happen. You have to. I mean, and the way that the anatomy of the stomach is, the linea alba, which is the connective tissue that lies straight down the midline, separating your rectus abdominis, so that what you think of as a six-pack abs. There's always a separation between your six packs. So there will never be no separation. That would be a really bad thing, regardless of pregnancy or not. You would have a hard time moving. And in pregnancy, you would just explode. I mean, the whole purpose of that connective tissue is to thin and stretch as your stomach grows and as the baby grows. So it has to happen. So when people are saying, what can I do to prevent it? How do I make sure I don't have it? It's like, you can't. It's a beautiful thing. It's how that works. Yeah. And when it comes to like, you can't do this, you can't do that. There's safe exercises, there are unsafe exercises. There's no such thing as a safe or unsafe exercise. It's how you do it. So you can do a perfectly safe exercise, quote unquote, terribly wrong, and it would be bad, for any part of your body. So same thing applies. I think that's the big misconception, or, things that I see on the internet right now are just diastasis, crazy stuff, and leaking are the big ones, and prolapse. That's another one too.
So let's start with DR because I'm not even going to try to say it, guys.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we'll just say
recti.
DR.
Did I do it? Diastasis recti.
That's
Is that right?
Recti,
Yeah.
recti.
Okay.
Whatever.
Right. Oh, no. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So maybe let's start there. You can run with it. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
for the people that are writing in saying I have DR, can I run with it, or what should I do? What's your advice to them?
Number one, I would say go to a pelvic health PT and be assessed for one, because you might not even have one. A lot of people will start to do like just poking at their stomach, or they're moving a certain way and they're like, oh my gosh, like there it is. It's separated. I'm coning, I'm doming. And so go to someone that will kind of talk you off the ledge would be my first tip. And then learn the exercises to help you progressively strengthen your entire body, not just your stomach. Your whole body needs to be strengthened, because it boils down to more than just strengthening your core. It's and how you're managing your pressure, how you're handling the load of impact with running, how you're breathing, how you're moving, how your posture affects your stomach. It affects everything in your body. So there's a lot of different things that come into play when it comes to quote unquote healing a diastasis. But there's no reason why you shouldn't run unless it's causing you pain. Obviously, that would be a good sign not to run, or if you feel terribly uncomfortable. But yeah, I would go to a PT is my number one recommendation, a pelvic PT.
Yeah. What are your red flags if somebody's returning? Say somebody like waited the 6 weeks or maybe even 12 weeks, and they are returning to running and they're unsure if how they feel. Maybe they have a fire clutch, maybe they don't.
Yeah.
Like, what are like the red flags that it's like, okay, this is not normal and you need to go seek professional help? And what is your advice to them? How can they find a pelvic floor PT in their area? Or I know people do virtual work as well, and they can use like a pelvic wand or something to help with the assessment.
Yeah. So my big three are pain, pressure, which, you could call that fire crotch or whatever you want to call it. But no, really pressure. How I normally say it to people is, does it feel like there's a tampon falling out? Is kind of a good way to gauge that. And Whitney, you can chime in here, like if that sounds familiar. Pain, pressure, leakage, or if you're early enough, are you having any increase in bleeding? So, at the beginning you have lochia, which normally is the first about 6 weeks it can last. If you are getting back into exercise and you're having any increase, because as you progress, that lochia starts as, red, like more bloody tissue, and then it progresses to more brown. Now we're really getting spicy here. If you are like bleeding harder now, like that's a good call to step back. But the big ones: pain, pressure, leakage, and pain anywhere. It doesn't just have to be pelvic floor. I think, again, it's great that the pelvic floor is getting so much more attention, but quite frankly, I see more orthopedic injuries from women coming back too soon postpartum than I do pelvic.
Well, and that, I mean, honestly, that was I did not see a pelvic floor PT until after my hip injury last fall. And I've actually seen two of them. Because I did not have the normal symptoms. Like I didn't struggle with leakage or tampons falling out or anything like that. But I was diagnosed with DR. I really hope my dad does not listen to this.
My dad does. He's gonna be mortified. Oh,
Oh my
my dad.
gosh. Yeah, maybe I'll just
Should be
tell him.
impressed. Look how much my daughter knows.
Yeah, seriously. She's saying words that none of us can pronounce.
Yeah.
Start talking like crazy. Just
Latin.
just tell me. Just tell me. Tell me.
No. We know what you're talking about. I just
Okay.
can't pronounce it.
Okay.
So yeah,
Decimation.
so and like, but that, so that's why I just think, like, especially if you have recurring injuries, because the pelvic floor, I mean, it's like ground zero for everything else. And so like you can have back injuries, hip injuries, high hamstring injuries, and it can emanate from issues with the core and pelvic floor. And so that's why, I mean, I just think it's so important postpartum. And I think it's an important point that like you are always postpartum and that it's never too late.
Yes.
If you are like me, 7 years before I went and started to get to the bottom of it, and it's all like it's treatable, fixable. It's never too late, right? I mean,
Right.
and I
Yeah.
think we
And,
had one of our questions was like, when is it too late? And it's never too late.
no,
I
it's
think
never.
that's
It's never too late.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that's a great point. Just, I know some people that have hurt their pelvises just during childbirth, and obviously it can be. Some people have really, really, really traumatic births and things like that. But that, oh, yeah. As I'm trying to be serious. Okay, and
Can you laugh?
sure. That, some people have very traumatic things happen to them and they might not resume physical exercise right away, or maybe they do and they think it's just postpartum pain. And that it can take years to figure out that it was something that happened during childbirth, whether it was even just tearing ligaments or it like even things on your inner thigh, like sorry, my brain just stopped working. So yeah, I don't know.
There.
Yeah.
For leakage, if somebody's struggling with leakage, is your advice also the same? So try to find somebody who can help you.
Yeah. 100%. Because it is a shame that a lot of women think like, oh, this is just the way it is. And I've even spoken to a lot of women whose OBGYNs will say, oh, this is the price you pay for having babies, and when some people won't even question that. It's like, oh, my doctor told me, which is a shame. And there's many different things that can contribute to leaking. And it's absolutely something that can be addressed and sometimes kind of easily. So yeah, I would 100% recommend. And when your question with how do you find one, a pelvic certified PT, I would always ask your OBGYN if they have any recommendations. Hopefully they do know some in your area. But there's also, and I can maybe put a link in the show notes, there through the APTA, which is the American Physical Therapy Association. If you go to their website, there's something in the top that will say find a provider, and you can search by subspecialty.
Oh, that's pretty neat.
That
That's
is
really
very
cool.
cool.
I was gonna
Yeah.
ask if like your practice makes connections with OBGYNs in your area. I feel like the idea of like this is the price you pay for I would be an old school way of thinking. Like I definitely
Oh yeah.
immediately think of my first OB that delivered my son and I'm like, oh, she would totally have said something like that. I just absolutely know it. But then I have friends that are, they just finished their residency a couple years ago, and I know that she would never say something like that. So,
Right. Yeah. It's wild. Just the differences in
mhm.
OBGYNs, midwives. I mean, I've heard all sorts of crazy stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Shayna, did you see, because I think of you and you've had 6 babies, like, and you're running at such a wonderful high level. Like, did you work with a pelvic floor PT or was it not even on your radar? Uh-oh. I think you're muted.
Oh.
Uh, she's gonna disconnect and are you back?
I think so.
Yes.
Yes, you are. Yeah, we hear you. Okay, good.
Anyway, I never saw a PT, honestly. I think I knew that I definitely had the separation just from like my last 3. I could tell like it took forever for my core to feel like it came back, and I felt the heaviness anytime I'd run on the treadmill. Or really like any jumping movement, I would feel it pretty heavy in my pelvic floor. And that's when I knew I was like, something's not right here. And so I just like, I did a lot of research myself, and I sought out like a lot of twin moms that were very active in their lives as well. And they kind of sent me information. That's how I worked through it. And I still don't know to this day if it's totally healed. But yeah, with my last, I didn't run at all. So I think that honestly helped me long term, is that I didn't run my last pregnancy. And then when I came back into running at a competitive level, like I am now, it took 6 months to do that, like to actually start again. And before that, I was doing a ton of strength training through all my pregnancies. Like my strength training was like my fix of like my runner's high, because, I was like, there's no way I could compete. I'm having a baby after a baby after a baby, and so like, yeah, I just leaned into strength training. Like I loved it and I thrived off of it, and I feel like it just gave me that high. But so I wondered that's why I don't have as many issues as maybe, like I never had the leakage of peeing or anything like that. And then really it's just after my twins pregnancy that I felt that heaviness, and I knew that there's like my core took forever to like every time I do like any kind of ab work, I could see like major dumb, like not just like the little bit where you're like, okay, well, I'm still postpartum, but it was pretty bad, and like slowly started coming back together. And yeah, so I think that's really the only reason why I never really had a lot of these issues, is because I just wasn't deep into running like I was, or like I am now. So
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is like, I mean, it's great you found that outlet in your body. I mean, it was very fortuitous, like that scratched the itch.
because
And
I would have, if I could have raced, like I would have totally been out there. Like this is not like I did it right. I just literally was like, there's no way I was like surviving. I was taking 20 credits in school. Like I was working as a CNA at night. Like I
wow.
just didn't have time to train like I am now. So it was just never an option. So yeah, 30 minutes of strength training, burn myself out. It was a good fix. So,
Yeah.
We had a few questions. Can we talk about sleep deprivation? Because sleep is so important for recovery. And after you have a baby, your hormones are going crazy. Sleep is just, it's not happening for most of it. It did not happen for me at all. Tricia, can you speak to like do you take that into consideration when you're working with a new mom? Because I know as a running coach, if I take on a postpartum, like I want to know how much they're sleeping, because that to me factors into how much we're going to be running. From like a medical standpoint, can you speak to that? Like, do you take that into consideration as far as how it may inhibit their recovery?
Yeah. And once again, even like referring back to Francesca, 5 a.m. mommy runner, everyone is so different. I mean, and every baby is different, every pregnancy is different, but how much sleep someone needs varies so much between each other. I mean, because I'm someone that can thrive off of not a lot of sleep. Francesca has a lot of common, I think. But in the postpartum phase, I mean, your body is going through so much healing and you need that sleep. And when your baby is not sleeping on top of that, then you're trying to throw in all this exercise and running. You can get lucky and not just dig yourself this enormous hole, and maybe you can pull it off for a little while, but most of the time you'll crash. Whether that's through injury, because you're going to be more susceptible to injury if you're not letting your body heal and repair through sleep. I mean, I think that's great that that's something that you take into consideration as a run coach.
Yeah.
Because it is
Awesome.
right. And so I don't, even, and I'm even guilty of back then saying, oh, team no sleep. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm so tough. I slept 2 hours last night, broken sleep with my baby, and here I am. But I did crash. I mean, I had all sorts of injuries within the first year after my third, because I was totally neglecting that. So you take that mental health piece,
Yeah.
like, oh, I feel good. It makes me feel good, but you've got to also rein yourself in too,
Mhm.
which is really freaking hard to do. So it's very easy to say and harder to implement, but it is
Mhm.
so important. The sleep is important.
I think for anybody who is feeling like that they're not in that phase of like being able to train for a marathon or any kind of race right now, when you are postpartum, if you are choosing even just that extra hour of sleep and maybe you're able to get out for walks and stuff, that's okay. That if that extra hour of sleep is your sanity, because that's how it is for me a lot still. I sometimes would just rather sleep the extra 30 minutes, and unfortunately that puts me on the treadmill and by myself, where I could have had childcare for even 30 extra minutes. But sometimes that extra little bit of sleep that is your sanity, and that's
Mhm.
totally fine. That doesn't mean you're behind or anything. It honestly just might mean that you are somebody that doesn't function off of, little to no sleep. So I think that's huge actually, because I'm like that. I don't do super well. After you get in a groove, of course you start to get used to it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's right? So
Right. I agree.
yeah.
Said it before, like I
Yeah.
mean, I learned my lesson now, so I protect it as much as I can when I was training so much and sleeping so little, and then I broke.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's
so
good
to me,
questions to ask individually
yeah.
of people
Mhm.
that you work with too, is like, how much sleep do you require? Before kids, like how much were you sleeping?
Mhm.
Look at
Mhm.
their injury history and see, like, that would be so helpful. Just do it on an individual basis for sure. Don't assume that everyone needs, 8 to 10 hours. Maybe some people need 6 to 7, it's so variable, but not
Mhm.
to push it doesn't matter. Like, get up, run, train for a
Oh,
marathon, 3 weeks
no,
postpartum,
no.
which
Yeah,
I know
that's
you don't.
not
I'm just
sustainable. Yeah.
right, right.
Okay, so we had several questions that were kind of similar about like training for a marathon postpartum, and then just like general advice for getting back to running postpartum. And I'll just say real quick, like when I am training somebody postpartum, like we start with walking, or they've been walking. Like walking is a great cross training exercise, and then it's run walk intervals before we progress. And we don't really start doing speed until, I mean, we're at, at least 20 weeks postpartum, at least for me.
Nice.
That's everybody's different, but that's very changes. So for me, like my general postpartum advice is to really listen to your body. Don't look at other people, and take it slow. Don't push yourself. Don't ignore yourself. Don't ignore how you feel. What about you
Yeah.
guys?
So general recommendation, just with the most recent research we have, and there's not a lot of research on postpartum women or pregnant women because we're women, and there's so many variables that come into research with women, hormones being the number one.
Yeah.
So, but the most recent research and recommendations we have as far as getting back into high impact exercise and running is 12 weeks. And now keep in mind, it's just a recommendation. So some people can and are ready to start before that. And there's so many factors. Like what
Yeah.
did you do during your pregnancy? What did you do before? Some people take more than 12 weeks. So if you're somebody listening and you're like 2 years postpartum and you're like, well, crap, I'm not even there. Again, it's so variable between people, but that is a perfect progression. I would never say for someone to do what I did and go from their 6-week checkup like, yes, baby in the stroller, let's rock. It's not good. Don't, do as I say, not as I do. But that's the perfect progression is, first of all, work on the foundational strength, work on your coordination and your connection of your mind to your body, your mind to pelvic floor, because that is a lot of misfiring is going on because you get used to your pregnant body and your center of gravity is different. And then when you're postpartum and you have this baby, your body is just different. You feel uncoordinated. You can't focus on what you're doing. The first run, I think we all feel like Bambi on ice, right? It's just
How
like,
long did it take for you guys? Because we did get a couple questions for that. How long did it take for you guys to feel more coordinated?
I feel like it's always like the year after the year mark.
Yeah.
Like I really feel like, I mean, to be truly honest, like after the year mark, I really start to feel like I am feeling like myself. And it's like, even now, I'm like almost 3 years postpartum, and like I feel like totally different from then. Like, so I think there's just like this rush out there, like with like the general standard, right? We're like, oh, 12 weeks, we're ready to go. Everything's back to normal. It's like, there's a lot that just went on inside there. Okay. Like, and even up to that point, like the last 10 months up to that point. So I think it's just, yeah, like I wish like more of us were able to like really speak about that postpartum experience, that it's really like a year plus for a lot of us to like, like our hormones and everything, like our mind, everything's coming back to normal again.
Yeah, I definitely think that I think what a lot of us do is we sign up for races and these events while we're pregnant, right? Like, or it's like we did it a year, like, especially with anything that you need to enter the lottery for. Like, that's what I did with Chicago. And my daughter would have only been 6 months old at the time. And ended up deferring because I remember, like, I was just like, why am I trying so hard for this thing that I can defer? And yes, of course, the cost is like, you have to pay for the whole race all over again. But, and now they have, I love this. They have exceptions for if you are postpartum or you're pregnant or you're nursing, that you can defer and not have to pay again. Like, I wish that it was just enacted the year after I did it. And I was like, this is so awesome. I'm so happy for people, because you shouldn't have to feel like you have to do the race because you paid for it, right? And like, these are very normal circumstances. It's not like you're injured. And that's how a lot of people, I think, get treated when you are pregnant and postpartum, is like you're this injured person, when really it's just you're taking time to recover. And for me to feel normal, honestly, it was like the week after I stopped nursing. Like, I just said this earlier, but for me, I was nursing and I was pumping and all this stuff, and it was probably just sorry, I hear the snacks and I'm like, what are they doing? I literally will hear a rapper. Oh, I'm like 2-year-old. Like, what are you eating? Like, oh, what's this? Yum. I remember with my yeah. I remember with my son, because I had I didn't know how many calories it took to sustain just your milk supply and being a person and being awake enough for your baby, and then adding in running on top of it was so hard. And so with my daughter, I did a lot better, but I do remember it was like the week after I stopped nursing her, it was like my calorie demand just wasn't as high anymore. And so all of that was able to go to running now. And so I was like, this is amazing that I started to feel like myself again. But it was because also your hormones level out, and you're doing your energy is basically going back to yourself versus to feeding your baby. So that played the biggest part. And sometimes I forget about that, because I'm like, why was postpartum running so hard for me? But it's because I was nursing and I was just like a milk machine. I did not need to be pumping as much as I was. I liked sneaking away from everybody.
yeah,
That was my hideout. Nobody wanted to be around me when I was pumping. So.
Oh yeah, it's awful.
Yeah.
It's just so, yeah.
Oh, see, I liked it because I would be like, if we're at a family gathering and everybody's like asking
Totally.
questions, I'd be like, oh, you know what? I gotta go pump, but I gotta take the baby too. And so I was like, quiet. I loved it.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember I was working in the office when I was pumping a bunch, and I'd be like, gotta close the office door. Can't talk to you guys. Need privacy.
man.
I was in an X-ray room, like in the dark, and then like people would come in, and I would have like a hospital gown, like with the pump go. Oh yeah, it was awful.
I remember I was going to go back to work after I had my son, and everybody wanted to be my partner because you can go fully out of service and go back to your station in the ambulance, and you can pump, and there's no time limit. And so everybody's like, oh, if she's going to be out of service like half the day, that's going to be awesome. Like, we want to be her partner and stuff. And I never ended up going back, but I was like, I would have totally been out of service half the day. Yeah.
Tricia, what about you?
Yeah.
When did you start to feel more normal?
Would say it was about the same for each, maybe a little bit longer with each of them, honestly. And I think it probably just had a lot to do with, more people to take care of, more fatigue. And I say this to people that I work with, like, how we talk about leaps or milestones with babies. I think that we have them too postpartum, where I would say 6 months postpartum, I felt like I was kind of waking up, where the baby's starting to sleep more and you're starting to sleep more. Then whenever you stop breastfeeding, for sure, because then your hormones can start. And one year, I think, was the big turning point, same as Shanna. And even with my third, I would say it was closer to 2 years. So I was
Wow.
dealing with a
And
lot
that's
of like hormonal mess at that point too.
Yeah.
So I think that had a lot to do with it. But 1 to
Yeah,
2
I was in
years.
such a I don't even remember, honestly. I was so sleep deprived that I can't even tell you when I started to feel. Maybe I haven't yet. I don't know.
7 years out, I'm still waiting for it.
I'm still waiting. No,
Can
I have no idea.
question. So I don't know if this is like a question that you could answer, Tricia, or even you, Whitney, as a coach. Is there like a particular distance that you would wait to recommend an athlete, a runner, based off of their postpartum return, like where they're at in that return? So say they're like 3 months to 6 months out, they're starting to run, whatever. Is there a specific distance that they should, generally speaking, obviously everybody's going to do what they want to do, but that's safer for them versus like, I don't know. I feel like now that I'm like in marathon training, and if I really did have one more kid, I think about it. I'm like, man, I would want to go right back into marathon training, but I know maybe necessarily that won't be the best option. But we see these pro runners that they do that, right? Like Mackenzie Benz or whatever. She's phenomenal. She was like, what, 8 months or 6 months or something, PRs and everything. And it's like, that's so like, that's not like normal for everybody else. That's just like an everyday runner, So trying to separate from what the pros are doing and what we should be doing. Is there like a guideline on that? Do you guys think?
Yeah, I think
For
it's
me, it's very individual. Like I have
right.
a handful of newer moms right now they have their marathons coming up, and they've had their 6 months postpartum. But yeah, it really depends. What I will not do is try to train someone for a time.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
me,
that's
yes,
smart.
you can do a marathon, especially I will not work with somebody if they have not done their pelvic floor work and or are not open to seeing someone. But and if they have a goal, like being open to changing that goal based on how they are feeling. But if somebody's like, yeah, I'm, 6 weeks postpartum and I want a PR in my marathon and qualify for Boston in 3 months or something, like, yeah, we're going to have to adjust your goals. But it is very the body dictates. So
I love that. Yeah.
yeah, so I don't
Yeah.
like to put a lid on goals. I really don't. But we do have to let the body dictate and be open to, like I said before, I'm big on contingency plans, different plans based on how you're feeling.
Love that.
But I would agree with that. Just totally individualized. Like, what have you done in your history? I mean, for you, Shanna, like you're going to be different than, someone that's just starting to run and that didn't do anything, during their pregnancy and maybe nothing postpartum. And they're like, yes, I want to do a marathon. That's totally different from a seasoned runner who's run multiple marathons in the past. Yeah, so definitely completely individualized. And I think it's important too, with anyone that's returning to run postpartum, that you don't get that green light to get back to exercise and automatically assume that you can go back to what you were doing before you were pregnant, because that's something that I'll see a lot, because mentally you're just so ready. And I totally get that and appreciate it, because you're like, yes, I need this for myself. But if you can take the time to work on the foundational work, like work on your strength work on the pelvic floor stuff, and then gradually build in the running with a walk run program is the best way to get back into it. You're going to be so thankful that you did that. Like, it sucks in the moment. It really does. because
Mhm.
you just want to go hard and go at it. But if you want to look at it from a big picture, like you want to be a runner for a lifetime. You don't want this to
Yeah.
just be a short stint. And so keep that in mind. Like it's not just one race you want to run, most likely. It's you want to be running for a long time. So you don't
I
want to
mean,
F
success
that
in
up.
running is you have to have the long view. When you're short-sighted, that's
Right.
when you get into trouble. And there's so many parallels between running postpartum and coming back from injury as well.
So true.
Right.
Yeah.
I
So
think
true.
also, when you run your marathon or your race and you gave it your all, your speed, all this stuff, and then you take that time off and then you try to run again and the speed isn't there anymore and you're like, what happened? That's so crazy. And it's like this idea that you have to push and push and push to get that speed back, where it will come back if you just give your body time. It's that same thing, like you just had this massive milestone in your life, like your body did, like as a woman, like that's what we're made for, is like to have these babies. And so it's like the biggest accomplishment in your entire life, and the hardest thing that you're ever going to do is push these babies out, and or if you have a C-section, which is a whole topic in its own, because like if you are a C-section mom, like you just had major abdominal surgery.
Right.
And like, yes, it's your body is recovering totally differently, but because you didn't do any of the pushing motion, but you have so many other, like your body is fully recovering from major surgeries, so you're still dealing with the same thing, that like you don't have the green light either to go and push yourself super hard, so, and you should still go see pelvic floor specialists after having C-sections. Like I feel like that's something that could get overlooked really, really easily too. But yeah, I just think it's like this major milestone, and that it's okay to just take your time, and just kind of like when you can relish in like a race that you just finished or a goal that you just accomplished, and you can just kind of sit there and enjoy it and just slow down a little bit. Like it's okay to do that. And that there is just no need to rush back into it. Like we're all in this. I mean, we're all in this for the long haul. And if, some people, I think that they maybe just want to do like that postpartum half marathon and then maybe be done with it, but that there doesn't need to be a time on it. Like you can do it 2 years postpartum and it won't be any different. You gave yourself time to heal, and you'll probably perform better, which means that you'll have more, you know, you'll have more strength, and you'll probably have done it faster, which means you'll be more proud of yourself and things like that. So there's no reason that you have to feel like you have to rush into all of these things. I
There's
think
no
that's
race
what
to race.
exactly.
right.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know
It's so
why.
true.
I feel like there is, like, we all can feel, especially if you're competitive, like you just feel this pressure to like
Mhm.
get as fast as you can, as fast as you can. And it's just like
Yeah.
longevity is the goal, right? I mean,
Exactly.
why
So much
rush
goes
the
that. I mean,
good
even
stuff?
Mhm.
the comparison, which we already covered in a couple weeks ago, so much
Mhm.
of it comes down to that too, especially with social media. And you look at other women that have had babies around the same time as you, and it's so easy to compare.
It's so hard. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is. And I think some people just make it look easier than it is. And also just that sometimes it is easier for other people to come back, and that there is no bounce back. You will forever be a different person. Like your body will forever be different after you have that baby. And that's totally fine. There's no need to look back. Like this is what you have. And some people it is just easier for them. And that's okay. And it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It might just take a little bit longer. And that's because it's their body and you have yours. And then you just need to figure out what path you need to follow to get to your goals.
So totally. Yeah. It's different. It's everybody's got their own stuff. So maybe easy for somebody postpartum, but they may be struggling with something else.
Mhm.
Okay. I think, I think maybe we'll probably record some more. I'm sure we'll record more talk. I would love to dive into postpartum depression as well.
Yeah.
In the future. Are you guys ready to have us maybe read a review?
Yeah, let's
Mhm.
do it.
Okay. Typically we've been ending with a question of the week, but I think we'll table that for this time because I didn't tell you guys what I was going to ask. So, or if you guys had a question. So we'll table that and we'll go to the review because there is a review that was left this week that I bet you guys haven't read it yet that I think you'll really
No, I
like.
don't think so.
Okay, so this one was on Apple and it's titled All Mother Runners Should Listen to This Podcast. The conversations and topics are so relatable and bring a sense of solidarity. It feels like I'm friends with all of them, and there are so many times I wish I could just jump into the conversation. LOL. I look forward to a new episode every week. So I love that so much.
I love that.
Because, yeah, that's really what we want to do is hopefully be relatable. And I don't know, just again, like we're all in this together, right? So we're here to lift each other up. And so, yeah, it means very much. So thank you for writing that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you guys have anything else to say?
No, I
any-
think go ahead, Tricia. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like any mom that's listening to, you're doing a good job. We're all just doing the best that we can. So keep going.
Yeah.
yeah.
We got
I
think.
I just want to say, I think, yeah, I know I'm left questioning.
Shooking
a lot.
crackers at my children.
I know. Call there as I give her a phone to watch. We want you to be a part, like for our listeners to be a part of the conversation. So, like we love when you send us DMs and like we love hearing that you're listening to us. But if there's anything that you want to hear about and talk about, because like this postpartum episode, you know, I think there's just so many more topics we can cover. Also pregnancy, running. There are so many things. So if there's anything specific, please reach out because like we want you to be a part of the conversation. That's super important to us, you know. So
We can have a whole episode just on fire crotch.
Absolutely. Right. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna dictionary that the second we get off of it.
I mean, can we clarify? This is something different than redheads, right? I mean,
Wow. Olivia's wheels are spinning for the real. You never heard that before? Redhead?
this is back to everybody. You got
fire?
to listen to the very end of this podcast. This is when
All
like
the good stuff.
yeah.
All the good stuff comes out.
I know. Our
Yeah.
Instagram reel is gonna be like, I don't know. Have you experienced?
I should just turn up the echo with the "Has your vagina been decimated?" I won't do it.
Oh my gosh.
but I want
Olivia,
to.
please grab that soundbite from Tricia.
Oh,
Not the vagina being decimated.
has your vagina been decimated?
Use that in our Instagram.
Well, come
Olivia is
listen
the
to
genius behind most of the reels on Instagram. So,
Oh my goodness.
okay.
Sorry, Dad.
All right. Yeah. We'll make sure they won't listen to this one. Okay.
Oh my
well,
gosh.
yes, we want to hear from you guys. And as always, we would love it if you write a review, you subscribe, you share, rate, all that good stuff. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And we will say something inappropriate next time.
That's a fact. Oh God.
Bye.
Bye.